It's connection. It's connection with people, and it's connection to myself, and it's connection to my thoughts. I just feel very connected. I'm always trying to figure out, well, why do I have this travel bug? There's a million reasons under the sun, but I think ultimately I'm connecting with people and I'm connecting with myself, and that gives me a lot of joy and a lot of purpose, and I'm endlessly fascinated in it.
Welcome to the Travel with Meaning podcast, the show that talks with artists, entertainers, entrepreneurs, chefs, athletes, CEOs, and travel industry experts to hear their travel stories that have impacted their lives and careers. I'm your host, Mike Scheibel. Join us on an epic adventure. Hey friends, if you've listened to any of our past podcast episodes, you've probably heard me mention Uncruise, the small ship adventure company that many of our past guests have raved about their experience. I had the chance to experience Uncruise myself, sailing the Sea of Cortez in Mexico, and I'm hooked on traveling with them. If you're thinking, it's time to go on a real unique adventure, maybe paddle a kayak, or go on a manageable hike with epic views of dramatic landscapes, or find your balance and a whole lot of joy on a stand-up paddleboard, fill all of your senses with the tastes, the sights, and the smells of a small boat adventure experience. Have you dreamed of visiting Alaska, but the large ship never really appealed to you? Have you heard how magical a river cruise along the historic Columbia and Snake River is, and thought, maybe one day? Perhaps you've always wanted to visit Costa Rica and Colombia, but didn't know where to start in planning your adventure. Well, here's the good news. Uncruise is your answer for all of these adventures, and you don't have to plan anything. They have you covered from the moment you arrive at the airport. Gourmet meals, craft cocktails, and memorable activities to create memories for a lifetime. Do as much as you want or as little as you desire, all in the comfort of your small ship adventure. So turn someday into today and book an adventure with Uncruise. Save $500 per person with the code TWM500. What are you waiting for? Visit uncruise.com. What up, community? Thanks for joining us for this episode. Today, I'm joined by Dan Demsky, the CEO of Unbound Merino, one of my favorite brands that makes it not only easy to travel because you don't have to pack too much to take with you, but also super comfy and great. Let's give a big what up to Dan. Dude, what's up? And thanks for joining us.
Hey, how are you?
I'm pretty great, man. Stoked to have you on the show.
Thanks. Great to be here.
So, all right. So you're originally from Toronto?
That's right.
What about your travels growing up? Did you have travels as a kid? What did you do?
You know, in childhood, I would go on some family vacations, but I remember when I was 6, I went to Disneyland and things like that. We'd go to Florida. And it was nice. They were nice trips, but it wasn't until I was about 21, let's say, I don't know, 21. My brother, he just saw to me, he's like, you need to see more of the world. And as a birthday present, he bought me a flight. He said, I'm going to buy you a flight anywhere you want in Asia. Now, we don't come from money. That was like a enormous, and I'm like, no, I can't accept that. I can't accept that. But he's like, I'm going to burn the money if you don't take the flight. He's like, just go. So I went to Tokyo by myself for a month. The whole world opened up to me. I'm like, everything's different here. I remember being in 7-Eleven and just like, from the outside, it looks like 7-Eleven, but from the inside, it's an entirely different universe. And the behaviors of people were different. And the way that everyone commuted felt different. And I was just like, my head was spinning the whole time. And I got the travel bug then. It just hasn't stopped. I love staying put in one place as long as I can and trying to absorb the culture. But as soon as I'm done that trip, I'm like, I need to go back, or where's next? And it's hard. I'm always being pulled in every direction, and the world is too big for me to handle. So I can't stop.
Love that. Let's talk about this trip to Japan. I find it fascinating and also just so cool that your brother had the foresight to really, kind of kick you in the butt to say, get out of here. Had he traveled much himself?
Yeah, he had a few trips. He went to Japan before, and I think that's what made me decide that that's the place I wanted to go. And I guess he just saw to me. I think maybe he just knew. I'm like, you're just like, it's gonna open your entire world. I have two brothers, but this one brother in particular, he's had that knack for seeing stuff in me that I haven't seen in myself. You know, he's like bought me, he's bought me tickets to concerts that have changed my life. He's like, just go. You don't even need to look this up. Just go to the concert. Um, so yeah, so I think he had that experience and he wanted to share that with me. And for sure, that was the greatest gift, because it wasn't just a gift of a flight. It was a gift of discovery and experience, and it gave me so much of myself. And I think I am who I am today because of that trip and him opening me up to that.
You know, that's like the ultimate travel stoke, as I like to say, right? Like he knew that that would bring you so much joy and excitement, and he knew that he would enjoy that for himself watching you do that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it was a coming of age kind of trip, because like I said, you know, it's not like we came for money where I can go and I can just book whatever hotels. Like I had to save up for a while, and I remember I had like a daily budget, and some days I'd go over it by $50 or something. So I literally was journaling every day of all the cool things I was doing, but also every dollar I spent, or every, you know, all the yen I spent. And if I went over $50 or whatever, I'd be like, okay, well, today I'm meeting at 7-Eleven all day. I got to pull back. So it was just like learning how to budget and navigate. And, you know, it wasn't an easy trip. It was hard. It was challenging. And I don't know, it just got everything out of me. It was the best. It was a full month. And yeah, that was the least English I've ever been able to speak, because at the time when I went, I don't know if it's changed. I've been to Japan a few times since then. My English got me by a lot more on the subsequent trips, but on that first trip, it's like, you know, especially when you're going south into the Kyushu region, when I was in Nagasaki and Hiroshima, there was like not a lot of English at all. And I was dealing with loneliness in ways I've never felt. I mean, that trip just had everything. It was the best.
Talk about the perfect trip to open you up and like really create a foundation for life going forward.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty remarkable. I think I read somewhere that you and your good friends also did a big road trip, or you would chase bands across the country.
Yeah, my business partners. Those are my best friends. You know, we started the company together. It's always been about that. It's always been about adventure, and I think that's where the entrepreneurial spark came from. You know, we'd love to see the band Phish. We'd drive all around the States, seeing Phish concerts, and the problem is it was expensive. You know, go like the concerts in Las Vegas, the concerts in Miami, and you know, we worked in a grocery store at the time, probably making, you know, $8 an hour or whatever we were making. We couldn't make money fast enough to afford the tickets that we wanted. So Andrew, who's my business partner, he's artistically inclined, so we get him to paint pictures of the band or make t-shirts with these cool cartoony caricatures of the band, and we go outside the concert and we'd sell, you know, 5 to 10 t-shirts or posters, and just to get enough money to go to the next show. So like if we didn't sell posters, like we may have been stranded in Limestone, Maine, or in Miami, or wherever we were driving to. But we just had this hustle and this drive. We just like push, and we'd be like, okay, we need $300 to get us from Hampton, Virginia to Camden, New Jersey. That's going to give us gas. It's going to give us some meals. It's going to give us a motel room. And we get the $300. We're like, let's go, pack the car. We're done. We get into the car. So we started to realize, I mean, not only do we have that sense of adventure, but we also realized that like we kind of can carve our own path in the world. You know, we can make money on our own terms and do things the way we want. So we had this knack for having adventures and building ventures together, and that led us to starting this company today. And it's funny because we still do the same thing. Like I was talking last night with Andrew, it's like, look, Phish is playing in Hollywood. Are we going? Like, are we gonna fly? And it's like,
are you guys coming out for that? That's soon.
Yeah, that's coming up at the end of the month. So we're debating. We have tickets, so we're like, okay, we have time to go. Let's see if we can go. So it's all the same. It's just our knees and our backs hurt a little bit more, you know.
Look, you guys were just figuring it out, and it's like that. You're young and like everything's possible type mentality, and you could just kind of go from there.
Yeah. And I remember when we first started, and we you know, it was always such a struggle. We were always down to the dollar, you know, like sometimes we'd get back from a road trip and the gas light was on, and we're like, well, I can't even believe we made it into the driveway. Like we have like $2 left, you know. And we always sort of just felt like, well, one day we'll make some money and we'll be able to like get hotels and be a little bit more comfortable. And this is a thing that allows us to stay grateful in life is we remember when we were first starting out, there was these guys we met, they were a little bit older than us, and we were really cool. We were talking to them and they were telling us about their day. And before the show, they went to this really nice seafood restaurant. And we were like, what? Like, we're in the parking lot eating like grilled cheese sandwiches that we bought for $1. Like, you went for like, how rich are you? And like, they were laughing at us. They were a little older. It's just a normal dinner for them. But for us, it's like, wow, you guys are like the luckiest people in the world. So we have a tradition now that whenever we go to a show, before the show, we go for a seafood dinner. We get some oysters, we get a couple beers. And I don't know if it's because I aspired to that little thing so much, but to this day, we still hold that tradition. And the second we sit down at that place and we know Phish is going to play that night, the oysters are on the way, the beers are being poured, like I get overwhelmed with gratitude. It's like not even a microcosm less than it was the first time. If all things are equal in life, that is the one thing I keep coming back to, where I just feel, I'm like, God, everything's perfect. I'm in a cool city with my best friends in the world, eating great food, about to see the best band in the world. And it's just, literally we're like live the same way as we did since we were kids.
That could be the coolest thing I've ever heard. One of the things I truly love about that is I think a lot of us, especially as travelers and as professionals, we get so busy. We know we're going to the show, we're going to dinner, but we're going. And I love that you can reference this as your moment to be present, to be grateful, and be like, here's where I am. This is the best moment right now. No matter what happens, I'm doing it.
It's literally, to me, as good as anything could be in the world. It's like I got good food, good times, good adventure, good people, good company. It's like, what more could I ask for? And it's just like it's like a smack in the face of like a reminder that everything's awesome.
Do you have one like other moment or one moment that really sticks out that you'd say is like your most meaningful time or most kind of memorable, even you will, from any of the Phish shows or adventures with your buddies?
I don't even know where to begin. I mean, they're plentiful. I mean, I was going to see Phish in Las Vegas with my then girlfriend, who then became my wife, now ex-wife, still friends, it's all good. But we decided to get married while in Vegas. We're just like, we wanted to circumvent the whole huge wedding thing. And we're already going, we're like, hey, we'll be in Vegas and our friends are there. Why don't we just not tell anybody, but let's just get married there and tell people when we get there. So there were people who are like, you're getting married? Like, they didn't believe it, but they were already there. So we went to, like, if it was any less glamorous, it would have been a drive-through wedding. But we got married. So we went, and our friends, so we went to the one concert on the Halloween night, and we got married 2 days after. So other friends of ours were still going to the show, but we're like, we're not going to go to the show. We're going to party because we just got married. This is our wedding now, right? So but some of our friends are going to the show. So our wedding became a pre-drink for a Phish concert. So there was like, there's a couple people who I wouldn't even invite to my wedding, but they were there. I'm like, yeah, of course, just come. Why not? And they were sitting there with a little water bottle, some vodka, like having a little pre-drinks, watching us. Like, it was like a pre-game show for the Phish concert.
Amazing.
My buddy was sitting there. He had a t-shirt with one of those tuxedo prints on it. And just like this big America Stars and Stripes sunglasses. And so, a Phish weekend ended up being my wedding.
One of the first things it says about you also, like, good music, good food. And like, I love that these stories, especially with your buddies, really are such a foundation for who you are and how you still live. That's rad.
Yeah. I feel everyone in the world should go see a Phish concert. They get made fun of a lot, but it's like, I feel so lucky that I've like found this band and I can connect to them, and it's just that the fact that they're still playing. If there's ever a travel advice that I'd give to anyone, it's go see a Phish concert, especially if you're not from the States. I'm from Canada, but it's close enough. But I can always imagine like coming from Europe and then going to see a concert like Phish. It's like so deep in the roots of Americana, and like it's such a unique experience. So I've already spoke on the two biggest, if people were asking what are the two like things that you have to do travel wise, I'd say go to Japan and go see a Phish concert in the United States. Those are the two greatest things you can do in my experience from travel.
Tell me this. I mean, I know you spent some years, running a media company instead. And then where did this idea to come back? Were your buddies working with you at that company, or where did this idea come to start?
Yeah, we had a video production agency, and that grew, and we were very young, but we grew pretty fast. And that's when we realized, oh wow, we can run like a real company. At one point we had like 20 employees and our client list was awesome. But after a few years of doing it, I felt kind of trapped in the business. So I didn't want to live a life where again, travel's a big part of my life, and I didn't feel like very free to travel. I felt like if I did escape and get away, there would be, cash flow issues in the business if I went away for too long. I had to be there working. It was like one of those, I was starting to turn into one of those guys that, I probably needed a Bluetooth headset to be taking calls all day, all night. And I didn't want to live a life where I was working 80 hours a week. I love working. I love what I do, but not to the point where I have no choice. And that's where what I really started to feel. And travel really was my escape. And, I was starting to think, I'm like, I would really love to start something new. I would really love to have a product business. And I just feel like it would be a better lifestyle for me. A business where I can open up my computer and I could be anywhere in the world, but still put in a good day's work, a hard day's work. The difference being I'm not stuck in Toronto. I could be in a beach somewhere. And I started thinking with my business, my business partners who are my best buddies and working in that business, like what products we come up with. So it was about 2 years. We'd meet up every week or two, and it would be either in the office or we'd go to a bar and we'd have a chalkboard or a whiteboard or a scrap piece of paper. And we'd just come up with ideas. And most of them were terrible ideas. Some of them were good ideas that maybe were hard to execute on, but we kept our mind in the game of thinking, what's that going to be? And it wasn't until I discovered merino wool that I realized like I had the idea for the business. And it came from the fact that I found out that you could get clothing that's light, breathable, that's anti-odor, antimicrobial. You could wear it multiple times without having to wash it. And because of that, you could pack light. This stuff already existed, but I just didn't love the brands. Not that they aren't good brands, they're amazing brands. It's just they were making clothing for people that were more, going on that canoe trip. It was more athletic, it was more outdoors. I'm like, I want something that I can go on a hike with, but I can also dress it up a little bit, go out for a cocktail at night, and feel, and no one was making it. So it just hit me. I'm like, I can make this for me. Like if I'm looking for this product to exist, and that was it. I went to them, I said, here's the idea. It's clothing made for travel. It's all about simplicity, versatility, and performance. The 3 words we still say every day in this company, because that's our aim of what we make. And it will allow people to go on pack a small bag, go away for a week or go away for 3 months. It didn't matter, because if you couldn't hit the laundry machine after a couple of weeks, it didn't matter. Right. And I put it to the test when I went to China and Vietnam. I don't remember how long that trip was, but let's say it was like a month or something. And I had a little backpack and I was testing our prototypes. Like, this is it. I was filming stuff the whole way. The only problem is we didn't have the extra cash to start this business. So we did a crowdfunding campaign. And I said, if our message resonates, if people like what we're trying to sell, they'll buy it. If not, worst case scenario is I have a box of the clothing I wanted to exist anyway, and I'll be on my way. I'll have my stuff and I'll be good, at least for a couple of years. And we put together this crowdfunding campaign. We tried to do $30,000 in pre-sales, and we did $400,000 in the first month. And I was just like, that's it. This is a real business. And to this date, it's just been growing. We're selling in over 100 countries. It turns out there's a lot of people like me who don't want to have tons of luggage with them when they travel. They want to feel light and free. And there we go. Now I have a business that's centered around travel, that allows me to travel, and it's awesome.
Dude, I love that you manifested the crap out of that thing. That's pretty good. That's a good one. You know, the interesting thing is, and I learned about your brand through travelers, right? Through friends of mine, whether they're travel influencers or whatever. And I saw a post and I was like, what is this brand? Maybe this is like 3 years ago. I was like, what is this brand? And just kind of deep diving from that, you know, I'm a fan of the type of product, the merino wool. And then when I started just even getting into your catalogs and getting some gear, like, it's comfy, it's great. I've taken it on long trips with me. It does everything you say. You mentioned being able to be anywhere by a beach with a laptop, and you know, kind of taking some deep dives into your Instagram. I see that, and I love that you've been able to create this. And a lot of places, whether it's South America, Brazil, or Mexico, Peru, when you go, are you just immersing yourself in these places, or do you have plans? Like, how are you as a traveler now?
It's always different. And, you know, my goal, sometimes circumstances don't allow me to achieve exactly what I want with my travel. But what I really want is to spend 1 to 2 months in one place. I used to feel like, okay, I'm going to go to Mexico. I want to see Mexico City, and I want to see Puebla, and I want to go to Guadalajara, and I want to see so much. And I realized that didn't cater to my life of also wanting to build the business, wanting to feel like I'm productive, and I want to live a normal life. So I've opted to try to stay in one place if I can, as long as possible. And that's where I'm really in my happiest, not just because I'm productive and I'm able to do the other things in my life that I need to do. But I find that once you're in a place for long enough that you have to go buy groceries, you start to absorb the culture in a different way. You know, if I'm somewhere for 5 days or a week, I'm like, I am not getting any groceries. They'll go to waste because there's a million places I need to eat. But, you know, I was just in Buenos Aires for a month. And if you have to get groceries, you have to go to the markets, and that's a part of the experience. And you also don't feel like you're in a rush. You get to enjoy a pace that's a little bit slower. I'm still going to get to that museum. I'm going to go see that show, but I have a lot of time here. So today I'm going to sit at this cafe and I get my work done, or I'm going to read this book. And I love being in that slow pace without having to see a bunch of stuff. So that's what I try to achieve. It doesn't always work though, because you know, sometimes I need to get to this. You know who ruins it? Phish ruins it.
Always back to Phish.
Yeah.
Here we go. Here's the
Phish ruins it a bit. Phish ruins it a bit. And also, you know, there's like, I'm going to this entrepreneur event, or I had a wedding to go to, things like that. So I love seeing everything. I'll take travel if I have to go somewhere for 5 days. It's awesome. But if I'm in my sweet spot, I'm somewhere for a month to 2 months or more, and just like really, really absorbing that culture.
I love that you're trying on, like, how are people living here? What's it like to go to the store? What's it like to slow down and like take it in? You know, what's it like to be there? I think
and I've realized everyone has. I meet a lot of travelers, and I feel like everyone's trying to figure out like why they're traveling. You know, it's quite, and everyone has a different reason, but it's all interesting, and everyone's just trying to get something different from it. But I think it's important to stop and ask yourself, like, what are you really trying to get out of it, and to be intentional with it, because it's quite easy to go somewhere and not take anything with you. You know, you just like, you didn't plan your time accordingly. You didn't spend the time maybe you want to sit in parks and absorb that culture. Maybe there's a bunch of art shows that you want to see. I do best when I like know what I really want, and I make the time for what I want to do, and I take the time to not do the things that I don't want to do. You know, like, it's like intentionality helps. And I always find it funny, or not funny, but interesting to talk to other travelers and see that we're all sort of figuring out like exactly what we're doing. No one really, we're all chasing a bunch of things, and not everyone knows exactly what they're after, myself included, but we try.
That's why we keep going. Do you have like a practice for that intentionality, or something like you journal out, or something you write down if like you're going to go to, let's say, Lima or something like that? Do you say like, you know, hey, here's what I want to see, or like some sort of, I guess, structure that you create for yourself?
I have. And I'll tell you, if I do write prior to going, and I write while I'm there, and I just write for myself, I don't post anything. the quality of my experience is heightened so deeply, especially if I set those intentions in advance. Because there's a bunch of thoughts. I mean, journaling, this is just a note on journaling itself. It doesn't have to relate to travel, but journaling is just taking all these jumbled thoughts that are in your head and combing through them and arranging them in a way that's logical and like, it's like getting it from here onto a page. It's like organizing your thoughts. So if I'm going to Peru, I'm going to Lima, and I know, like, what is it that I want to see? Like, do I want to learn a bit about the history of where I am? I was just in Istanbul. That was a short trip. For me, it was like, this is such an important city in the history of the world, and I know nothing. And I set that intention. It's like, I want to learn a bit about what the city is and why it's important, and I want to learn about what their local food culture is. And I wrote that in advance, and then I was able to see, like, going into that trip, I'm like, I don't have a plan for that. So a few days prior, I was like, okay, well, I know what I want. Let me get after it. So I went on Airbnb to the Airbnb experiences, and I found this guy who is a trained historian that does food tours. I'm like, bullseye. This is my guy. I'm going to do it on the first day, right when I get there, because then the context of everything is going to make a lot more sense. And that was like lucky stars kind of guy. Like, I found that guy, because not all tours are this good, but man, that was good, because that guy knew everything. And any question I had, he had, like, his knowledge was insane. Like, he knew everything that there was about that city. But I felt like I was living in an episode of, like, an Anthony Bourdain, No Reservations, like, because I was learning a million things at once, but eating the whole time. Then after that was a short trip. I was only there for 3 days, but like, I knew what to eat. Like, I'm like, I don't need, like, I know what to look for. I know the areas to go. And I got a deep dive into, like, Turkish food. So yeah, that's a difference. If I didn't have that intention, if I wasn't like, I really just want to understand what makes this city important, I wouldn't have looked up that thing. I would have walked around in some tourist areas, and it still probably would have been pretty good, because Istanbul's pretty badass city, but it wouldn't have been nearly as deep.
That's pretty awesome. And you mentioned, obviously as a traveler, you get to meet a lot of people. And I like that you said, we're all kind of searching for something. And you found that in these conversations. Are you finding that travelers, maybe this side of the pandemic, because you've obviously still been traveling quite a bit, and are setting more intentions? Do you think people's mindset are a little different? Do you think there's any difference in conversations?
I think there's a lot of people who have broken free from something that existed in their life prior to the pandemic. I've heard often people are like, I met this one guy, and he has in a fully remote job, and he's not really supposed to leave his hometown, but he's like, they don't know the difference, right? I just have like a virtual background, and it's like, he was from the States, but he was in Buenos Aires. But he was like, after the pandemic, like, I realized you don't need to go into an office. He's like, I will never go in an office. He's like, pay me half the money, and if I could travel. It's like, money's not a factor for him. He needs his freedom, and I've seen a lot of that. I'll be honest with you, my life was already set up to be remote because of this company. So
Right.
So when everyone in the pandemic discovered that they could be remote too, and then the prices of Airbnbs have gone up, and travelers are everywhere, I kind of like, damn, the pandemic kind of foiled my plan a little bit, because now everywhere I go, it's just full of I love meeting foreigners, expats, and people that are traveling everywhere I go, but I have noticed there is a significant amount more everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, everywhere. So sometimes when I travel, when I want to go to Buenos Aires, like, I love meeting the travelers that are there, but I also like there's so many of them. Like, where are the Argentinian people? Like, I want to meet more of the locals. So it's become harder to have a true local experience, because there's a lot more people like me. So it's weird. It's a paradox, because I get sometimes a little bit annoyed with these people. I'm like, yo, I'm just one of them. Like, I'm no better. I'm exactly the same. So, but yeah, there's definitely a change.
Just because I was doing it before them. I knew this. I had this lifestyle already.
Yeah, these people will ruin my plan.
Yeah, you all found out. It's interesting because, I think for the longest time we would look at the travel influencer. They had that lifestyle. And then as you said, everyone who was remote or whatever, they realized I don't need to go to an office. I can still go and probably pay less for my rent and have a better quality of life. It's been that wonderful kind of change. And I love that you're meeting these people as you go through what you were already doing.
Yeah, when you open up the world, like you can fashion a life however you want it. I
Mm.
met a guy from Chicago, and he's like, I make okay money, but in Chicago, I'm poor, man. I live poor. He's like, here I'm rich and I make the same money, right? So it's just like, he's just loving it. He's like, why would I ever, like, it's like, I can work my Chicago job, and I could be here. And a lot of people are figuring that out. And it's like, you could see the excitement. But the travel influencers, a lot of them, no, maybe I shouldn't say it. Well, I'm going to say it because now I've already.
Please do.
A lot of times I see people where it's like, where the travel is too much about what they're posting. And I have seen a lot of people that I met where they don't have Instagram, they don't, and they're the ones that are the most present. They're the ones that are like that. It's less about showing where they are or trying to find a place that like fits into like the mold of what their brand is. And you see that they're more like into the language or the dancing scene or whatever it is. There's a thread that's deeper. And I'm not saying all travel influencers don't have that. Are void of that, because that's not true at all. But there is like a contingent of people where it is like largely about getting content. And I think sometimes that takes people out of being able to tap into what's great about where they are in the first place.
Yeah, well said. I mean, we don't need to throw every travel influencer under the bus, right
Not
now.
everyone.
There's time later. But, I think that's a really good point to say about, everything you've talked about, whether it's being presence in the authenticity of what you're doing. And when it becomes a job or when it becomes something you think you're on the hustle for to get some money or to do what you're doing, there's a different element to it. So I really do love, and I have quite a few friends who've told me whether they've come to the live events, because we initially started these podcasts hosting live events. A lot of my friends have told me from coming to my live events or listening to podcasts, they've left their jobs. I have quite a few friends who are living other places, and now they all want to be on the podcast to be that real person. And that's something I love. It's not about, Joe Schmo who has 200,000 followers. It's that person that is really moved, touched, and inspired through travel and what they're doing and what is their life and their career and the stories that have been affected through their adventures.
Yeah. It's interesting what traveling could do to you in that when, I'm from Toronto, and in Toronto, the roots are so deep that I am who I am here. Now I could work to reinvent myself here, and I love my life here. I have great family and great friends, and there are places that I love here where I love going to eat, and I love going to see music, and I know what I love in the city. But these are roots that are deep. But take me out of Toronto and plant me in a new city I've never been, and it's a blank slate. I could be different.
Yeah.
And I'm not that different, but I could. I feel there's a different. I don't need to make new friends here. In fact, I don't really make new friends in my hometown. Not that I don't want new friends or I don't appreciate new friends. It's just I'm already busy. I'm already with my friends. I'm with my family. But, I was in Buenos Aires and I knew nobody. And I had made lifelong friends within the first 2 days immediately. Yep. And I think a lot of people are really drawn to that change of scenery and how it allows them to have a fresh, clean slate on their entire identity. And I think that's really refreshing and rewarding for a lot of people.
Yeah, well said. Again, I think you and I are mirrors on that, dude. Like, because I grew up in LA. I'm back here. I've been back here on and off through my life. And I mean, I'm a guy who spent well over a decade in entertainment and bought a one-way ticket and left. And so from the course of coming back and having those experiences, I love LA. I love where I'm from. Pretty much everything you said, I'm like, yep, I can tick that box. But when I leave, I come alive. And so for me, looking at the pandemic has also been this conversation of what is travel and how do we use this lens of going to look at different places in our neighborhood to encourage other people who maybe think travel means you have to get on a plane and go far. It doesn't actually mean that. It could be going to a different neighborhood, doing a different hike, whatever it is to start that conversation. But yeah, I truly believe for myself, I become wholeheartedly my authentic self to the highest good when I'm on the road, wherever that is.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like a new version of yourself, but in another way, it's the realest version of yourself. Because it's not, and it's for some people that might be baggage to get home, but it's not always baggage. Like sometimes it's like, you can have a great life in LA. You can love everything about your life in LA, but it's kind of you've built a box in which you live in. And when it's all gone, you could be like, you could talk to people the way you want. You could be just more open and just I guess there's an element of spontaneity that maybe you wouldn't have. It's like a really, really raw version of who you are. I'm planning my year right now. I'm planning the months, and you can see this big chunk of time here. That's December, January, February, March, April, and like I gotta be anywhere but here. If I can get those 5 months down in Argentina or something like that, I'll be a happy man.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because again, Instagram, other places, like I can get a sense of like, I know that you love the South American or Mexico vibe. What is it about that? You talked a little bit warm weather. What is it also about that you love? And like, what are some of the things that have brought you back over and over again to say, like, this is a place I want to really invest in my time?
Mexico is where I keep going back to. It's for practical reasons. The sun is one of the biggest motivators, right? It makes me happy. I like the sun. Number two, a factor in running a business and still traveling is the time zone matters. So being close enough in the same time zone, that really works for South America because it's similar. I might be off an hour or so, but it's not like going to Europe or Asia where it's 7 to 12 hours. But then, there's two things I look for when I travel. The first thing is adventure and experiencing something new, and like the novelty of that, and shaking up, what I know about everything, like the way food could be and the way music could be, and like I love that change, trying something new. But then the second thing I look for is a place I know and like that I can get work done. So I tend to have I dip my toe trying somewhere new. And if I like it enough, I'll try to go back there for a little bit longer term. I love Mexico because I think Mexican food, when you're in Mexico, and I don't mean going to like Cancun. I've been to Cancun a few times. I feel like Cancun, look, there's probably some great stuff there, but for the most part, it's like going to a big American Mexican restaurant the size of a city. It's not like, there's nothing about it that's like, oh, I love Mexican culture here. It's because it's not catered towards Mexicans. But if you go to Mexico City and you try the food there, it's like for me, it was like trying Mexican food for the first time, and the food's it's unbelievable. But the most important thing is the people. And I love my experiences with Mexican people because, and maybe I'm lucky, but on average, the people that I meet in Mexico, they're so in love with their own culture that they want to share it. So like, you have to come to this bar. You have to see this music. And that could be like mariachi music, or it could be like a DJ kind of music. I'm like, oh, I went to this place. I got an al pastor taco. Like, garbage. You got to come here. And I have people fighting over what's the best taco. And I'm like, fight all you want. Take me to all of them. I find there's a passion for their culture that just sucks me in.
Yeah.
So I've spent time in other cities and found them like, I love it here. It's really cool. But I'm like, I gotta go back to Mexico right now. I'm gonna fly there. I'm gonna spend the next month there because I don't know, something about the Mexican culture just speaks to me. And yeah, I could see myself living
or somewhere else that you also go out to.
I've explored quite a bit through that country, and there's a lot to see. There's a lot more I need to see. But I am a big city guy, and Mexico City is for me. It is, apparently a lot of other expats too. It's a problem. I'm a part of the problem there because there's a weird gentrification happening that's not good for Mexican culture. And I'm like, I hate reading this and knowing I'm a part of the problem. It is a real thing, but I think a lot of people are cluing into just how amazing Mexico City is. It's as world class as any great city. It's like a New York or
Yeah.
a London or a Paris. It's Mexico City. It's amazing, and I'm addicted to it. So I went to Mexico City for the first time in 2019, so it's not that long ago, and I've been like 6 or 7 times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I keep going back. In fact, it's my launch. If I'm going anywhere else, I'm like, well, I can start in Mexico City. So when I went to
It's a jumping
Argentina,
off point.
I'm like, well, I mean, rather than fly to Argentina, like I can fly to Mexico City and then Argentina, and I tend to always take that option and stay there for a bit, and starting to lay a bit of roots there. Have friends there, places I love there, familiarity, and I can just, it's just a good life.
You'd mentioned kind of adventure. Do you have kind of a go-to? I know you're a big foodie dude and a music guy, but do you need to be like in nature? Are you a rock climber? Do you have something that like calls to you in adventures?
So I'm starting to be interested in finding really, really epic hikes, but this is a new thing for me. And I wouldn't say that I'm a nature person. I'm not that I don't love nature. In fact, when I'm in nature, I'm always unanimously reminded, I'm like, I need to spend way more time in nature. But I'm a city guy. If I had to spend the rest of my life in nature or in a city, like city, there's no question. I love the culture of big cities. I love food stalls that are bustling and like finding the one with the big line. I love knowing there's always something to do. Istanbul would like hit me by surprise. Like I was so ignorant of Istanbul. Like when I got there, I didn't even realize I'm like, I don't know if it's a big city or a small city. It's massive. And I was that ignorant. I had no idea. And I get there and I was just like, I can't believe I'm here for 3 days. I can't wait to come here for a month, because I'm like, I want to find all of the spots and where like all the music is happening. I want to go deep into what the food scene is. And I find there's a depth to everything in big cities, except for nature. There's no depth. There's not a lot of depth. I mean, you can get good city parks, but I love seeing the culture that people create, with their food, with their music, with the art. Always had like, I mean, I was in Istanbul Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and it could have been like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday in any other city. It's like there was stuff going on all night. It was just exciting, and I derive a lot of energy from that.
Yeah, it's amazing. I want to talk to you about Israel. I know you've spent some time. I know you also had a recent trip with your family.
I'm a Jewish guy, and I'm not particularly religious. In fact, I'm not religious at all. But I've been to Israel. This is my 3rd time. I went on a trip called Birthright, which is, are you familiar with Birthright?
Very familiar with it. I did something called Reality, which if you don't know Reality, I'll share about in a second.
I know Israel's very controversial to a lot of people, but as a Jewish person going there, it's the only place I've ever been where, people are like me. And there's something home feeling about that. It's like, when I got to Tel Aviv, it was Purim, which is like Jewish Halloween. And I forgot, but I'm like, when I was taking the Uber from the airport, and just like getting into Tel Aviv, I'm just seeing, like, why is everyone in costumes? Oh, it's Purim. And like, cool. Like, this is like our holiday. And there's something that really, really runs deep in my visits there, that I feel like a really, really deep connection to my entire lineage. And it's a reminder of who I am. And it's nice to feel connected to my own culture. I don't get that. You grow up in Toronto, and once it's Christmas time, it's like, that's what everyone is celebrating. That's what everything's about. And Christmas is a cool holiday. I like it. But there's something special about being in the homeland of where all my people are. And it was extra cool to be there with my whole family. My brother set up a lot of historical tours. He wanted to show his children what Israel is. And I got to sort of be a fly on the wall to seeing them learn who they are. And it was really special and really awesome.
That's cool, man. I really love it.
I'll tell you one trip I'm really excited for that will happen, though, is I got invited to a wedding in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam.
Wow.
And it's in our circle of friends. So my leadership team and my companies, they're like my best friends. We're all invited. So it's almost like a part of it's like partially like our company trip. There's a lot of us from our company going, but we do our annual planning every year at that time. So, this year we did it in Sayulita in Mexico. Because my business partner was there for the winter. So we're like, instead of doing it virtually, we'll just fly to you and do it by the beach. So we did our annual planning there. And this year, because we're all going to be in Asia, we're like, well, this is now a company trip. And because we're all going anyway, so let's do our annual planning. So we're trying to think, well, where do we go? We're going to be in Asia together. Do we go to Japan? Do we go to South Korea? Do we go to Laos, Malaysia, Taiwan? So we're like now just having the conversation and taking votes. But I'm going to have a company trip somewhere in Asia. So I'm stoked for that too.
I think part of the fun of that is just the planning of where it goes, right? Like, yeah, it's great you're there, but like part of this is like, where do we go? And like all the names you start rattling off, I was like, oh yeah, good times there. Like that's awesome.
South Korea is, if I had to pick, I'm picking South Korea. I want to go to Seoul. Again, love big cities, but I saw a documentary about K-pop. Now, this is not my favorite music in the world, but it looks like a trip. To see K-pop in Korea will be insane. So that's what I'm fighting for.
Let me ask you this question. What does travel mean to you?
It's connection. It's connection with people, and it's connection to myself, and it's connection to my thoughts. I just feel very connected. I'm always trying to figure out, well, even why do I have this travel bug? There's a million reasons under the sun, but I think ultimately I'm connecting with people and I'm connecting with myself, and that gives me a lot of joy and a lot of purpose, and I'm endlessly fascinated in it.
Awesome. Dan, what an awesome conversation. I really just, like I said, I was a big fan of the brand, and I was just so looking forward to talking to you. And you kind of hit it out of the park, man. Like I said, I think you're very much the Canadian version of me on so many levels.
It's awesome.
But let's do this. We're gonna play a speed round of questions.
Sure.
We're gonna put 60 seconds on the clock, starting now. What is your current country count?
Oh, I don't know. Probably close to 50.
Place you want to visit?
Spain.
Place you tell people to visit?
Japan.
Window or aisle?
Aisle, always.
Mountains or beach?
Beach.
Airbnb or hotel?
Ooh, Airbnb.
Scuba dive, skydive?
Scuba dive.
Kindle, hard copy?
For travel, Kindle. Anywhere else, hard copy.
Sunrise, sunset?
Sunset.
World Cup, World Series?
World Series.
North Pole, South Pole?
North Pole.
Do you collect anything from your trip?
Memories and concert stubs.
The thing you need on a flight?
Kindle.
Best travel lesson?
Just say yes.
Favorite national park?
Joshua Tree.
Favorite airline?
I hate them all.
Favorite hotel?
The Metropole in Hanoi, Vietnam.
Favorite food?
Japanese food.
Favorite place in the world?
Berlin and Tokyo.
Dan Demsky. Tell all the good people where they can find you on the interwebs.
Just you can find me, Dan Demsky, or you can find Unbound Merino by just typing that in. Just hit Google. We're all there. We're on Instagram, website, all that stuff. I wish we said we use Twitter more. But we don't really, still figuring that out.
All right, everyone. Remember, one of Dan's big lessons, the best thing you need to do is go to see a Phish show. So we'll have to remember that. And until next time, people, hopefully we'll see you on the open road. Peace.